Sunday morning. My name is Jaden Jefferson, and welcome to this week's Community Focus. This week, we received some big news regarding the Four Corners project in downtown Toledo, and anybody who's been following that knows that there's a lot of action happening there. And joining me to talk about this is Brandon Sehlhorst. He's the City of Toledo's Director of Economic Development. Good morning.
Good morning, Jaden. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So give me an idea of what's happening with the Four Corners project for people who aren't familiar.
Yeah, well, let's take a step back and talk about why we call it the Four Corners, because I think it's really important to understand the context of how important this is for downtown development. So we call this project the Four Corners because this is the only intersection in downtown Toledo where the four original buildings still remain. Think about that for a second. That means this is the only intersection in Toledo, in downtown Toledo, where the four original buildings still remain. We have unfortunately lost several of our buildings. We've seen redevelopment of other corners, but on these, in this particular intersection, these are four historic skyscrapers. Three of them are completely vacant, and one of them houses the regional offices for Huntington Bank. So I think it's important to understand from the community's perspective why it's so critical that we rejuvenate this corner for downtown Toledo and continue downtown development momentum on this side of downtown. Where we're at today is the City of Toledo owned what was called the NASB building, and that is on the opposite corner of the Huntington Bank building. We recently sold that building to Kevin Prater, who has redeveloped the Ford Industry Square development downtown, the Burdan building, and also the Standart Lofts project, a very reputable developer who's done some great work in town. The two buildings that we made the announcement about earlier this week is in regards to the Spitzer and the Nicholas buildings. So these two buildings are owned by a partner organization called the Lucas County Land Bank. And we are working with the land bank to find a developer to redevelop both of these historic skyscrapers into a functional building again. So what we announced today, or what we announced on Monday, was a request for proposals process, where we are requesting proposals from developers locally, regionally, and nationally to submit their proposal for how they would like to redevelop one or both of those structures.
And it is so crazy to think about that this is the only intersection where really nothing has changed. You have the same four buildings there, and there's still plenty of opportunity, of course, when you look back at Ford Industry Square and what's happening there. So now that we're in this phase where we're looking for those developers who can take this project and, I guess, take the baton and pass it down, what are you looking for in a developer for this project?
Yeah, it's not every day the city or the land bank releases an RFP for two vacant skyscrapers in their downtown. It's actually not common for other communities to do this, but unfortunately we've had to step in to save these really important assets from demolition or further deterioration. So what we're looking for is a reputable developer that has experience converting similar size buildings back into mixed use or productive use, and a developer that has the financial wherewithal and skill set to bring these buildings back to life. So it's a very high bar that we've set for these buildings. We have a very high expectation that the developer that's selected will ultimately bring these buildings into the city and the community's vision.
And talking in terms of the end of this timeline, I know we're still early, but there has been a lot of progress with what's happening there. So when do you see this work being completed and having these buildings back and restored to where, there can be new opportunity there?
Sure. So to take a step back for a second, we acquired these buildings back in 2020, and we've taken the past 2 years to do a lot of due diligence on these buildings. So just to put it into perspective, in downtown Toledo, we have over 2 million square feet of just completely vacant buildings. That is larger than Franklin Park Mall, just being completely vacant in downtown Toledo. These two buildings that we released the RFP on make up 500,000 square feet of that vacancy. So we knew it would be very important for us to take a step back, understand the market, understand the building conditions, and conduct studies to show developers and to get their interest, because this is going to be a risky development for anyone to endeavor upon. So we've taken the past 2 years, we had a market study done, we had a feasibility study done. We've also uncovered all of the environmental contamination in both of the buildings, and have attracted grant funding to completely remediate the environmental associated with those buildings. So we've taken our time, Jaden, to really understand what we have on our hands here and what it's going to take to redevelop these buildings, all in an effort to help speed up the process and to help take the risk out of the deal, or as much risk as we can out of the deal for a potential developer. So I will say, I think it's really difficult to project when these buildings might be back online. These are very complicated projects that are going to require a lot of different incentives on the federal, state, and local levels that will need to be secured. But we're hopeful that at least within the next, I would say, 5 years, we would be seeing, development happen within those buildings.
And finally, looking ahead, what could be the next big project in downtown Toledo?
We've got several big projects happening in downtown Toledo right now. From the city's perspective, we look at 3 projects as highly catalytic projects that have the ability to transform downtown Toledo. And those are, the first one is this Four Corners project, the ability to bring these vacant skyscrapers and potentially, 400 residential units back into these buildings is a transformational opportunity for our central business district. The other one, which is very well known, is our $200 million Glass City Riverwalk, which is going to completely transform 300 acres of riverfront property into beautiful park amenities. We, along with the Metro Parks Toledo, have a goal to make this the best Riverwalk in the country, and we are holding ourselves accountable to make sure we meet that objective. And then finally, another project that is currently underway is the Jefferson Center project. This building is located in Uptown, so just a little ways from the central business district, but still very close in proximity. This is going to be our Center for Innovation, and this is the major announcement that was made last year is a company called Bitwise out of California announced that they would be expanding outside of California into Toledo, Ohio for their first office outside of California. 400 jobs are going to be within this location. There's also going to be a number of startup and small business support organizations within this building. This building is really one piece of what we hope to be a larger innovation district, where we have housing and new businesses and park amenities all within the Uptown area. So when you see these 3 projects happening on the riverfront, central business district, and Uptown, we're hoping they have a ripple effect that brings additional investment, momentum, and interest in the surrounding area.
What an exciting time to be a Toledoan. I mean, we have so much happening, and it's good that people are starting to take notice. So Brandon Sehlhorst, Director of Economic Development for the City of Toledo, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jaden.
Thank you. You have a great day.